Canada has been under huge pressure from our NATO allies to ante up increased military spending. Well, today at the end of the Leaders' Summit in Washington, the Prime Minister promised that Canada will reach the 2% target by 2032. CTV's Judy Trin is in Washington. And Judy, what exactly did Canada commit and how will we get there?
Sandy, the Prime Minister only set the timeline after months of steady pressure that crescendoed into open criticism on the global stage.
Canada fully expects to reach NATO's 2% of GDP spending target by 2032.
Bolstering Arctic security will be part of the plan. Canada is entering into an agreement with the United States and Finland to build icebreakers and announced intentions to buy up to 12 submarines that can patrol the Arctic. But there are no details about the costs and how we'll pay for it.
The fact that those details aren't there and no money is there really undercuts the value of what they're announcing.
The government only set the deadline after pressure from military allies that turned into open criticism on the margins of the NATO summit. From the U.S. Speaker of the House.
Talk about riding on America's coattails. They have the safety and security of being on our border and not having to worry about that. I think that's shameful.
To the Wall Street Journal that called the Trudeau government a deadbeat.
We continually step up and punch above our weight, something that isn't always reflected in the crass mathematical calculation that certain people turn to very quickly.
Still, 23 of 32 nations meet that NATO target, and Canada, until today, was the only member without a date to get there.
If you invite a friend out to dinner a number of times, and every single time the check comes to the table, you're in the bathroom, people stop inviting you to dinner. And the same thing is happening with Canada and its armed forces. It's time for us to pony up.
In a statement, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, David Cohen, said that the Americans are pleased that Canada is increasing its defense spending and helping with Arctic defense. Sandy.
Thanks, Judy. CTV's Judy Trin in Washington. Okay, let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelas. And Vassy, Ottawa's promised to meet NATO's target by 2032. Is it clear how they're going to do that, how they're going to pay for it?
It's a great question, Sandy. I'd say it's clear as mud. At this point, all really the Prime Minister said today, as Judy pointed out, was that this goal would now be one that they articulate, that they would reach the 2% spending target by a certain date. Otherwise, it's very difficult to ascertain exactly how they're going to get there. And we are talking about additional spending in the neighborhood of billions of dollars a year. So not sure where they're going to get that money. Not necessarily sure where exactly or when they're going to spend it, just that it's all going to happen by 2032.
Okay, now Canada went to this NATO summit anticipating that there'd be pressure on us to move on this 2%. So is it fair to say we waited until we were embarrassed on the world stage to act?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is fair to say it's confounding that, just a number of months ago, April 8th, I think if I have my dates right, they released this long-awaited, long-overdue defense policy review that articulated a spending target of 1.76% by 2030. I remember that day asking the defense minister, why not 2%? What do you tell your allies? And he kept saying, well, we've got to make sure we can actually get there before we say anything. In the interim, we have heard a lot from particularly Republican lawmakers, but on the Democratic side as well, many of whom spoke publicly this week after meeting with the Prime Minister about how privately they conveyed to him that Canada was a laggard when it came to defense spending. My sources say this plan was essentially drawn up earlier this week, which I think is emblematic of, the fact that it is reflective of the pressure that this government was under from our allies, but from our most important ally in the United States especially.
Okay, topic change, Vassy. What do your sources say about all the talk in Ottawa today that the PMO is going to be moving Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland out? What's all that about?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's statement today made it pretty clear that that will happen. It's just a question of when, and it's all about saving the bacon. I'm not sure Mark Carney is actually jumping into the fold, but moving Chrystia Freeland out of that portfolio, acknowledging that there are issues around the government's economic plan, smells a lot to me about survival, and it also leads me to believe the Prime Minister is sticking around for a while longer. Sandy?
All right, Vassy, thanks for this.